Have you ever seen a grown man cry on the football field? Well, you're about to, because in this video, we're tackling the NFL's most terrifying titans, the legendary monsters who turn Sundays into a day of dread for opposing teams. From bone-crushing tackles to bone-chilling stares, these guys were nightmares in cleats. So buckle up and get ready to tremble, because we're counting down the top scariest players in NFL history. Number 10. James Harrison, Pittsburgh Steelers. They say when James Harrison cracks a smile, Pittsburgh braces for 6 more weeks of winter. His pass rush skills were lethal, but it was his icy stare that struck fear into opponents' hearts like he was permanently annoyed. James Harrison wasn't your typical success story. He didn't hit his stride until he was pushing 30, clawing his way up from being undrafted to earning 5 Pro Bowl nods. Once he found his groove though, he became a nightmare for quarterbacks everywhere. He played like he was straight out of another era, slamming into opponents with a furiosity that split opinions right down the middle. And as for his grin, well, let's just say it's as rare as a heat wave in December. Number 9. Jack Tatum, Oakland Raiders. Jack Tatum was such a force on the back end of the Raiders that he earned the nickname the Assassin for his punishing style of play. He might have only stood at 5'10", but that did not prevent him from playing like he was 7'11", and receivers had to have their head on a swivel whenever running over the middle with Tatum on the field. Proud of his intimidating reputation, Tatum once wrote in his autobiography, "They call me Assassin," that he aimed for hits so impactful they could almost be considered criminal. His influence was undeniable, as seen in the famous Immaculate Reception, where his decisive action disrupted the intended play, leading to one of football's most memorable moments. Number 8. Mike Singletary, Chicago Bears. Mike Singletary was the beating heart of the Bears' famous monsters of the Midway defense in the 80s. As the legendary middle linebacker, he embodied their fierce ethos like no other. Despite his pivotal role in one of the NFL's most formidable defenses, Singletary often flies under the radar in discussions about the league's most intimidating players. However, he rightly deserves recognition. Known as Samurai Mike, his aggressive style of play was tailor-made for the 46 defense. His fearless approach, throwing his body into every play, set a high bar for his teammates. Singletary was a master of intimidation, with his piercing gaze striking fear into the hearts of opposing quarterbacks, making him a true nightmare on the field. Number 7. Mean Joe Green, Pittsburgh Steelers. Can you imagine being called mean on the field without being one of the scariest players ever? Well, if you look at Joe Green, the answer is a big fat no. This guy was a defensive beast for the Steelers back in the 70s. He made other teams' linemen quake in their cleats as he anchored the famous steel curtain defense. Green didn't just scare opponents, he led the Steelers to 4 Super Bowl victories in that era. He wasn't just a brute force, his teammates looked up to him for his fiery spirit. Surprisingly, off the field, he was known to be quite gentle. Yep, the same guy who made grown men tremble was also the star of a friendly Coca-Cola ad. Number 6. Jack Lambert, Pittsburgh Steelers. While the steel curtain grabbed all the spotlight on Pittsburgh's top-notch defense, some argued that their standout player didn't line up right at the front. Jack Lambert, the star middle linebacker, may not have been the bulkiest guy at 220 pounds, but he struck terror into rival offenses like nobody else in NFL history. Lambert wasn't just a big name, he was the top inside linebacker of his time. His lightning-fast moves from one end of the field to the other were unmatched, completely changing the game in Pittsburgh's Tampa 2 strategy. With 9 Pro Bowl appearances under his belt, Lambert's knack for snatching 6 interceptions in a season twice was legendary. Quarterbacks dreaded facing him not just for his fierce gaze, even without teeth, but also for his uncanny ability to disrupt their passing game. Number 5. Deacon Jones, the Secretary of Defense. Football might never have thought about counting sacks if it wasn't for Deacon Jones. Back in the 60s, he came up with the term. On the field, he made plenty of them himself, leading in sacks 5 times and racking up 173.5 during his 14-year career. Some say his real numbers couldn't even be higher, as the league didn't start officially counting sacks until 1982. Jones isn't just one of the best at hunting down quarterbacks, He's also one of the scariest players to ever play on the field. Nobody can match his intensity, and his infamous head slap move sent shivers down the spines of opposing linemen before facing him on game day. Number 4. Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis's sustained level of dominance is unlike anything the league has seen from the linebacker position, and he is one of the few players who have made a Pro Bowl appearance in 3 different decades. Likewise, his intensity was also unmatched, and he played with reckless abandon like every snap might be his last. The 13-time Pro Bowler helped the Ravens defense become one of the most feared units in league history throughout the early 2000s. While Lewis may have been undersized for the position, you would never know it based on his playing style, as he laid more bone-rattling hits than anyone. Pass catchers had to be aware of his presence when going across the middle, and he regularly punished whoever was not. Number 3. Dick Night Train Lane. Being a smart ball thief is why cornerbacks scare other teams the most. But Dick Night Train Lane was not just any corner. He brought a special kind of fierceness that nobody has matched yet. His signature move, the Night Train necktie, where he'd yank opponents down by their face mask, was so brutal that the NFL had to change some rules because of him. Facing him meant facing real fear. But it wasn't just runners who were scared. Quarterbacks dreaded him too. He was one of the best at stealing passes. In his first year in 1952, he snatched 14 interceptions in just 12 games, a record that still stands today, and he's second on the all-time list for interceptions. Number 2. Lawrence Taylor, New York Giants. Lawrence Taylor wasted no time becoming one of the league's top pass rushers. He shocked everyone by snagging the Defensive Player of the Year award in his rookie year. But that was just the beginning for this 10-time Pro Bowler. He didn't just play, he reshaped the whole game. Teams had to rethink their strategies against him, making him the ultimate defensive nightmare. Some argue he's the greatest defensive player the NFL has ever seen. And let's not forget his intimidation game. His speed off the line gave linemen sleepless nights, and he could practically smell their fear. Quarterbacks weren't spared either. He could read their minds before the snap. Taylor wasn't just tough on the field. He took on Bam Bam Bigelow at WrestleMania, proving he's fierce both on and off the gridiron. Number 1. Dick Butkus, Chicago Bears. Dick Butkus, the original monster of the Midway, was a true terror on the football field. Chicago's iconic middle linebacker had a unique way of striking fear into the hearts of his opponents. Between plays, he'd unleash a snarl that sounded more like a raging beast than a man. But it wasn't just his animalistic demeanor that made him so daunting. Butkus had a habit of sinking his teeth into the competition, quite literally, with reports of him biting opponents amid the chaos on the field. But it wasn't just his primal antics that made Butkus legendary. His tackling prowess was unmatched, making him a nightmare for anyone holding the ball. Every snap, he aimed to deliver bone-crushing punishment to whoever dared to cross his path. Talking smack about Butkus or his team was a risky move for any opposing player. Alty Taylor, a running back for the Lions, found this out the hard way in 1969. After calling Butkus overrated in an interview, Taylor found himself fleeing to the safety of the stands to avoid a face-to-face confrontation with the linebacker. Butkus's dominance extended beyond individual games. He earned a spot on multiple all-decade teams, a feat achieved by only 2 other linebackers. His legacy as one of the NFL's greatest and most ferocious players is etched in football history forever. Alright folks, that's our list for the scariest dudes to ever roam the gridiron. Remember, fear on the field translates to excitement for us fans. Who did I miss? Leave a comment below with the NFL legend that used to give you nightmares. In a good way, of course. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this. And hey, if you're feeling brave, hit that notification bell so you never miss out on future football thrills. We'll see you next time.